My name is Tim McFadden, and I am the co-chair with Cindy Teasdale McGowan of the program committee of MVF, so we line up your speakers every month. I'm also a partner at Posanelli in the corporate transactions group, and I also serve as co-chair of the Startup Ventures group in St. Louis. It is my honor today to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Dennis Lauer, who is the president of the Cortex Innovation Community. Mr. Lauer has been involved in technology-led economic development since 1995 with a focus on the planning and development of university-sponsored innovation districts. From 1998 to 2010, Mr. Lauer served as Vice President of Planning and Development for the Biomedical Research Foundation and Director of Intertech Science Park in Shreveport, Louisiana. During that time, Mr. Lauer was named by two separate governors as a chair of the statewide Louisiana Economic Development Council. Prior to his time in Louisiana, Mr. Lauer served as the executive director of University Heights Science Park in Newark, New Jersey. Before that, he served as acting director of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority in Atlantic City and was the founder and executive director of the National Shared Housing Resource Center in Philadelphia. In his free time, which must not be much, Mr. Lauer also serves on the boards of the St. Louis PBS 9 Network, the St. Louis Construction Loan Fund, St. Louis Makes, and St. Louis Public Schools Collegiate School of Medicine and Bioscience. So with that, I give you Dennis, and hopefully we'll get this working here.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank you for making me your guest speaker this morning, and I see a lot of faces that I know and a number of faces that I don't know. So hopefully, as we go into the future, I'll get to know more of you. So I did talk with Steve Smith before I came here, and Steve told me that after this breakfast, if you stay through the entire thing, there will be 50 of these motorbikes given away. So you'll have to fight your way to pick the one that you want. What a great venue, a great location. So we appreciate all that the Lawrence Group has done, and we appreciate this place for meetings like this. So 1995, I was just listening to that. 20 years I've been doing science park development, and all three of the ones that I've been associated with are urban. So kind of my specialty is urban innovation districts. And it's been great fun and challenging. And like all of you who are in the entrepreneurial world, as you know, we multitask all the time. So my job is like 5 or 6 things constantly being juggled, and that's what makes it exciting. And working with folks like you is what makes it exciting. It's not about us, it's not about Cortex, it's really about you folks that are out here. What we do is try to put an environment in place that supports you. So if you're successful, we're successful, and we can't be successful unless you're successful. So when I think of Cortex, I think of us as, in the way that BASF referred to itself about 15 years ago. We don't make the product, we make it better. So we don't generate new technology, but we help you with your technologies to go as far as you can, as fast as you can, and succeed or fail as quickly as you can. All of us know it's no good to hang on to something that needs to pivot and go in another direction. So, over the course of the 20 years that I've been working now in science park development, I've learned a lot about what the ingredients are to developing a successful urban innovation district. Some of those I'll share with you this morning, and I can happily say that here in Cortex, in St. Louis, of the 3 that I've worked on over the last 20 years, this is the one that has all of the right elements. This is the perfect storm. And that's what makes it so exciting for me to be part of that, because I'm just an orchestrator. I'm a conductor, but all the pieces are here. The constellation is here, And of course, it's an overnight success that started in the 1990s. And it's now just the tip of the iceberg. But I really believe it's the tip of the iceberg. I think there's much more to come by way of technology innovation and becoming a hub location that's nationally and internationally recognized. And I'm not talking just about Cortex. I'm talking about the entire St. Louis region. What all of us are doing here this morning and in the work that we go back to is absolutely critical to the future of St. Louis. We are the ones that are the next generation of headquartered companies that are here. Yes, a lot of you hopefully will be bought out by larger companies and corporations, but that 5% or 10% that remain and grow here, you will become the next Parinas, the next Enterprises, the next Stiefels. And so we need to constantly refresh the pool of innovative companies that not only start here, but that mature here and grow here in order for us to be a vital economic development, economic region in the country and in the world. So I want to talk to you about what we've done with Cortex. I've been here for 5 years, and I stand on the shoulders of people like John McDonnell and Bill Danforth and John Dubinsky, Louis Levy, Mark Wrighton, Father Biondi, now Fred Pistello, and others that are on our board who have made who had a vision and who made a commitment. And just this morning, I've worked a lot with the Brookings Institution over the last couple of years in defining this phenomenon of urban innovation districts. And just this morning, was in dialogue again with them, and they said, as we study these things globally, we recognize that Cortex really is at the pinnacle and has all of the elements. We need to talk specifically about governance and leadership. And that's really what has brought Cortex to the forefront and is getting us a lot of recognition, both nationally and internationally at this point. But it's standing on the shoulders of those people who in the late 1990s recognized, and the people that I'm talking about are the leaders of these institutions. Oops, I'll come back to these slides in a minute. There we go. The leaders of these institutions that sponsored and founded Cortex. So why did Cortex start? It started because we were exporting all of our technology. We were exporting our economic development. We were doing great at research, excuse me, both in the universities as well as with the regional corporations. But a lot of that was either shelf technology that wasn't being developed, or it was licensed to out-of-state companies to grow, and it's like selling your seed corn. And so the whole impetus for Cortex was to try to grow and mature that and capture the jobs and economic benefit and wealth creation here. So that was the vision of the founding institutions now over, probably 15 years ago. Cortex was formally founded in 2002, so we're 13 years old. And I'll come back to this in a moment, but I want to start and give you a little bit of a different background this morning as we start. So when I came in 2010, one of the things that we did was pivot in understanding what our mission was. And as much as we had accomplished up to that point in setting the table with economic development incentives and identifying a location to develop Cortex, the model needed tweaking and it needed to pivot, like many of our companies in the ecosystem have to. And where we had to pivot to was to recognize that it's not about buildings, it's not about real estate. It's all about the people in the buildings. It's all about the connections. It's all about those collision points of smart people in cool places. And it's all about supporting a new generation of startup companies. Everybody wants to recruit established companies worldwide. And there are lots of people that have a lot more money than we have here to be able to put those dollars on the table. But fundamentally, technology companies can't easily be recruited wholesale because it's all about the people, and you can't just pick up the people and move the people. So what we needed to do was to pivot and understand that we had to grow our own companies. And so what we've been doing in the last 5 years has been focusing a lot on creating the environment in which we can grow our own startup companies. And yes, we're going to get our share of larger companies opportunistically that want to have a presence here, that have had some connection to us one way or another, most recently Square, who recognize that this is a great place for lots of reasons to grow their companies. But we are not going to grow the economy, the regional economy, by bringing in somebody else's company from some other major city across the country. So we have to grow our own. And so that pivot and understanding, excuse me, that what we have to do is to grow an innovation community is where we started then to redefine what Cortex is. So of these words, Cortex Innovation Community, it's the community aspect. That's the most important thing. And it's meetings like this where people are being introduced to each other and the connections are being made. This is the work of building an innovation region. So I applaud you for doing that and the leadership that you're providing to it. But I want to talk about two important studies that Brookings has done in the last 18 months. One that most recently came out was about America's advanced industries. And the other is about the rise of innovation districts, the new geography of innovation in America. So from the advanced industries study, these are some interesting statistics. Tech companies are really part of, and when I say tech, I'm talking about all technologies, are really the essence of the advanced industries in the United States. So as you can see here, the R&D, the way this is defined is the R&D spending is more than $450 per worker in that company, and over 21% of the workforce with a STEM education. And of these companies, it's only 9% of the workforce in the United States, but 17% of the GDP that's generated from this group, with an average annual compensation of $90,000, and 85% of the patents that are produced in this country are by this 9% of the workforce. So you can see why this gold is so important to understand economically across the country. 70% of the jobs are located in the metro areas of these advanced industry jobs in metro areas, not unlike St. Louis. And now this is the interesting thing, that since 1980, that rate, actual job number is about the same, but it's because of the efficiencies that technology brings into the workforce, with a growth of 5.4 annual output since 1980. And to stay on top, the only way you do it is through innovation, as you know. So I want to talk about the findings that came out of this other report, the Innovation District Report. Why are urban innovation centers developing across the country and internationally? Lots of factors. I'll highlight just a few here. The realignment of corporate R&D and the shift toward collaborative university research. The Bell Labs are fewer and fewer these days, you know that, and the collaborations are increasing with the universities. Basic research is being done. The seminal research is being done more at the academic level in this country than it is at the corporate level these days. And those companies are now also embracing a more open innovation environment and not believing that they have to do everything vertically inside the company. This is something that you can look at and see very clearly in the pharmaceutical industry. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was almost all inside those corporations, and now a lot of it is outsourced and bought at a level after a phase 1 or phase 2 clinical trial, as opposed to developing all that inside. Other reasons, millennial preferences. All of us are are dealing with this. This is a great part of the workforce that's now in Cortex, and increasingly so in the next 5 years. I think right now the millennial workforce comprises 34% in the United States, and in 5 years it'll be 54%. So a lot of us up here won't be here in 5 years. Millennial preference of moving back to the urban area, it's being driven by a number of factors: lifestyle choices, college debt, global pressure on wages, which is pushing wages down in this country, making home ownership more fleeting and apartment living more appealing. Following this trend, are corporations reestablishing their urban locations in order to access that millennial talent and access the research of the institutions in the larger cities. So those are the factors that are creating, not just in the United States, but globally, the emergence of these urban innovation districts, of which Cortex is one. So three quick slides to look at this from a different perspective. This is about a 100-year perspective I'll throw out to you. In the 1900s, the cities were organized around factories, okay? And the neighborhoods were around the factories. And the markets and the bars and the recreation areas were all within walking distance because lots of people didn't have cars. So you would walk to work or you'd bike to work and you'd shop in the neighborhood on the way home and you'd sleep in your neighborhood very close to where the factories were. Philadelphia is a very good example. If you look at the evolution of Philadelphia, that's the way it was. Different sectors in different parts of the cities with different neighborhoods where the workers lived. First, second, third place were all together. Live, work, and play were all integrated in that 19th century, or that 20th century, early 20th century model. Post-1950s, the funding of the interstate highway system got people in their cars into the suburbs. Outside of Philadelphia, the first Levittown was the first suburban bedroom community, and it grew all across the country. So now, excuse me, where you live is not where you work, is not where you play. So you get in cars, you go to work, you get in the car, you go and play or shop somewhere else and come back to your first place. So that's the disintegrated model that really reigned until about 2000. And now what we're experiencing is a reintegration again of those three places, live, work, and play. Those are the factors that are really driving the urban innovation district movement globally right now. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to establish and ride on those trends. We want to become the regional epicenter for innovation and entrepreneurism. We have over 200 companies right now in Cortex. And when I came 5 years ago, we did, thank you, appreciate that. That's a big help. We did 3 different focus groups. And in those focus groups, the entrepreneurs all said the same thing. We're too much scattered throughout the region. We need more density. We need more focused concentration so that we can more easily network with each other. And we listened to that. We changed our master plan, our physical master plan accordingly. So we're trying to create this always-on live, work, play, learn environment now that has residential right next to retail, right next to technology-related companies. Our location, I think you all know, but in relationship to the sponsoring institutions, we're very close to all of them, except for UMSL. But UMSL is connected to us through the Metrolink station, or Metrolink, and we'll have a new station at the end of 2017, right in the heart of Cortex. But this is really an important component. We were the hole in the donut, and still are to some degree, with all of this incredible infrastructure that surrounds us, that we leverage right now. So the cultural infrastructure, as well as the recreational infrastructure, combined with our institutional anchors, is what is part of our value proposition that we are able to market on. All of this is within walking and biking distance of Cortex. And as you might imagine, it all appeals to the workforce that we have within Cortex. So Cortex itself is 187 acres. It's this pink area that you see here. And we have development rights over that, which means we have to master plan it and implement the master plan. We can develop it ourselves, which we choose not to do. We'd rather do it with other developers and use their money and expertise as well as ours. But we do develop projects if we have to on our own. But we're surrounded, as you can see, by these great anchors. So we developed a new master plan in 2012 that has residential as well as the research and office and retail and the new station and a new interchange to get in and out of Cortex. All of this is about a 25-year build-out typically, but we're escalating it, and I would expect that We will, within about 5 to 8 years, have filled pretty much all of our land mass within the district if we continue to be pulled by the market in the way that we are at this time. But all of that, if built out, would be about 4 million square feet and $2 billion of development. And we're in over 10,000 jobs. We're about 25% of the way there at this point. This is the thing that I'm most proud of, though. A lot of what we've been doing is leveraging other development in surrounding neighborhoods. In the last 2 years, over $500 million to match our $500 million that we've been putting into Cortex has happened in the surrounding neighborhoods. Most of these, I'd say 60–65% are residential, new residential projects. The remainder are commercial and retail. But this is very gratifying. This is the way an urban redevelopment project should work. We need the seed money to prime the pump. But as we get further along in our development, those subsidies go down as the market begins to pull it. A public-private partnership is only a public-private partnership because the market conditions are not correct and not ripe for it to be just a private sector development. So the public needs to come in and help level the playing ground with incentives to draw and attract economic development. But as we continue to build this out, our subsidies will continue to go down. And this is gratifying to see what's already happening in the surrounding neighborhood. So part of our strategy is growing our own companies, which is what I mentioned before. We can't just rely on bringing in companies from outside. And so our strategy to do that is to generate, within walking distance, within a block of each other, about a half a dozen innovation centers, all with their own programs, all with their own populations, their own constituents, and then just allow them to interact and create an environment where they can find each other and where they can benefit from each other's expertise. The 6 that we initially have targeted, and we have several more that we're working on now as well, are these 6. The first 2 were here when I was here, CET and when I came, CET and the biogenerator. And since I came, we brought in CIC and the Venture Cafe. Hey, Travis. And Tech Shop will be opening in 2016 next summer in August, and Chris is here, who's now the on-the-ground person for Tech Shop. And an Impact Hub is a social entrepreneur innovation center that's still a little bit in our future. We're still trying to chew through and digest the ones above it. So each of these have their own events and some sample events from CET. Many of you have been there, but you can see this is where we do our more heavy technical assistance for startup companies. We're just completing our 10-week fall Square One Entrepreneurs Boot Camp. We have 38 new entrepreneurs that have been in this program this fall, and the final pitches are being given next Monday or Tuesday night, I forget. Monday. Next Monday night. I think the top 6 will be pitching, and they'll be getting prize money. But that's exciting because of those 38, we have 13% are African American, 7%, I believe, are Hispanic, about 17% Asian, and we have about 35 to 40% are women. So we continue to push on the inclusion of women and minorities in what we're trying to do within the district. Inclusion is the key to innovation, and it's something we're very committed to. Venture Cafe, y'all know about that. In the breakout sessions last night, Travis, how many folks? 4 how many? 432 people. If you haven't been there, stop by on a Thursday afternoon or evening. Our hackathons, we've had about a dozen hackathons in the last year in Cortex with prize monies as high as $60,000. So again, creating an environment and locations where people can bump into each other. And then I just hired a person to program the Cortex Commons. This is the Cortex Commons that we're just about complete with our punch listing. And these are the events now that we're beginning to program in. So stay tuned to that as we ramp up into spring and summer of next year with a full array of events to bring people together, again, where they can collide, meet each other informally. These are buildings that have been completed. I'll just zip through these. So I think you all know about Cofactor or have heard about Cofactor, but this is a real terrific company for us. They're located in Cortex. It's been out of WashU's Genome Institute. Recently selected this past summer for Y Combinator, and in rankings that came out of those 100 companies that were there, Cofactor on one list was ranked number 9. So real exciting company for us to have in Cortex. Other things that have recently been completed, of course, you know this one, the Big Blue. More people know about us now because of this than anything we did in the past 15 years. So, go figure, you know. What can I say? Took us about 14 months to negotiate that, but it's our gift back to the city for their support for what we're doing. This is our newest building under construction. Tech Shop will be in the first floor, and it will open this next summer, July, August. So Tech Shop is taking most of the first floor with, on the back, you'll see a cafe. We getting a lot of traction and interest right now in the cafe. Expect to have that leased by the end of January. And hopefully, maybe by the end of today, we'll be in a position to make an announcement on the top 2 floors for a company from the East Coast leasing 40,000 square feet. We're down to the last couple of words in the lease document that are being heatedly debated right now. So we'll see how that turns out. Q4 2017 is when the new station opens. And then Wexford is now, because of its success in 4240, excuse me, is now focused on where custom steel processing was. And they'll have an announcement very soon about this set of buildings. And I'm not going to steal their thunder, but this will be the first building that they advance, but I'll let them talk about it very soon, within probably a week. And we also, let me go back to that a second. We also have a residential tower that we're in negotiations with a Chicago developer. So we're hopeful that we'll have that under agreement in Q1 of 2016. So a lot of new development coming in the next 2 to 3 months that we'll be announcing. We're also negotiating with a couple of hoteliers, 3 hoteliers right now for a hotel within Cortex. We're not there yet, but hopefully by sometime at the end of the first quarter or sometime in the second quarter, we will announce a hotel. And then we also are in negotiations over the rehab of the Crescent building. So those are things that we're working on right now to keep our momentum going. And I mentioned before that inclusion is a key to innovation, and it's central to our DNA. We have a number of programs that start at the construction end and go all the way through to our Collegiate School for Medicine and Bioscience, which is now embedded down in the SLU Medical District. We're excited about that. We've got 3 grades. The next year we'll have a full 9 to 12 school. We have 175 students. And I'm happy to say that we're like right at the top when you look at the scores that are coming out. So a lot of good, exciting stuff that we're engaged in, and thank you for making us be able to do what we're doing. So thank you.
I'm curious, this is a very simple question. What is the one thing that you're most excited or most passionate about of all the things you've told us today?
I guess there's a long-term and there's a long-term and a short-term kind of answer to that. Long-term, the thing that most excites me is the commitment that has been shown by the founding institutions. So I think that in order to do something like this, you need strong institutional leadership and commitment to stay the course, because these things do not happen overnight. It's made up of thousands and thousands of decisions, which now are probably in the millions of decisions, small decisions that get us to where we are. And I think our success collectively here in St. Louis, and as it grows, is because there are a lot of people staying the course and working in the areas where they're making contributions, because this is really a constellation of things. Cortex is just one small piece of the ecosystem. T-Rex, Arch grants, Nebula, all of the innovation districts, Danforth Plant Science Center, Missouri Venture Forum, all of us that are part of this ecosystem, that's what makes it happen. So if I was to point to something which, I think is the most gratifying to me, it's that we have such a robust ecosystem that is the envy of many other cities, that they just don't have that. So from a long-term perspective, I'd say that. Short-term, every day it's a new project. So I can't tell you right now what I'm excited about because I can't reveal it. But, but that's what makes my job exciting, is that, there's always something new that's coming up. And so, it's like, for me, a perfect storm every day. But I can't tell you what that is today.
Hi, Dennis. Great presentation and great work. 5 years from now, after you achieve all these things that you are planning to, where is St. Louis going to be comparing with other cities in the country?
The last part, where do I see what? After we
where
finish
is St. Louis going to be 5 years from now, after you achieve what you plan?
So 5 years?
Compare with other cities in the country.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting a lot of echo and with some noise behind me. So
compared to other cities, where do you see St. Louis?
In 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can tell you where we are today, and I can tell you where I think we'll be in 5 to 10 years. So where we are today is we're being internationally recognized. St. Louis is being internationally recognized and pointed to by a lot of people with a lot of curiosity about what's happening. And I can say that a lot of that's come from Brookings, who is our best ambassador. So I am constantly getting, like this week, inquiries from Ireland and inquiry from Portland. And these discussions are the second and third discussions that I've had. And people trying to study what we're doing, so they're recognizing what we're doing. Now, that recognition is not yet, it's not because we have so much critical mass that we're, a Silicon Valley or a Boston or San Diego, but it's because of the dynamics right now that are going on, and people are recognizing it as they're starting to study what does it take to create an innovation district in an urban area. And we are being pointed to right now, both nationally and internationally, as one of the best practices. I don't really want to promote that, just to let you know how other people are looking at it, because we have not yet established our critical mass. And it's going to take 5 to 10 years to do that, to establish the critical mass. And to me, what critical mass means is that, and I've shared this with some of you, we need to be able to stand on top of the arch and look west for 10 miles and see it filled with technology-related companies. That would be our Silicon Valley, going from San Jose to San Francisco. Do I believe it's achievable? Yes. Unfortunately, right now, within our own ecosystem, we still have too many silos. We still are working to protect our own spaces, and we have to grow up a little bit collectively. We have to take a deep breath. We have to trust each other. We have to work together. We have to collaborate. We have to put out one message. We have to put out one effort collectively to grow more quickly. And I think that we'll get there, but I think it's 5 to 10 years out.
Yeah, I was interested in knowing a couple things. One is that it looks like the vision and the goals are very interesting and impressive and very promising. How does the effort that we have going on here in St. Louis compare to the efforts in other cities in terms of the dollars being invested, in terms of the scope, in terms of the goals that we have, and what's different about what we're doing here compared to other cities?
What's different, I believe, is that we do have a very complex ecosystem. A lot of other cities, it's not as complex. There are several larger players that are just pushing it. We have a very diversified base, and that's good because it brings in new elements. We were talking earlier about the importance of Prosper and what Prosper is doing, and really pushing forth women entrepreneurs. And all of these individual efforts strengthen the overall. And I think that we have, such a complex system. If you take a look at the EQ's first diagram that just came out 2 weeks ago, the diagram that they have it published in their EQ Quarterly, and it's online. And if you look at that spider diagram, I mean, it's just incredible. It's dizzying. And that complexity that we're mapping and daylighting for people to see, I think it's very informative to those of us that are part of the ecosystem, because I'm sure that not all of us know of all the things that are happening in the ecosystem. So that's the good thing. You know that you're starting to, get close to the top of the mountain when you don't know what's going on in your own ecosystem. And it's not because you're not plugged into it, it's because so much is happening. So I think that kind of dovetails in the previous question. We're being recognized for that now by people that are studying that. And we're doing that in a different way. Now, the challenges that we have is we don't have enough capital. We don't have enough serial entrepreneurs. The quality, from my perspective, of the research is as good as anywhere, globally. It's just that our bench isn't as deep, maybe, but we're going to get there. In terms of financial resources, that kind of comes with recognition, too. Ultimately, it's the private sector that drives those investments. That's where the real money comes in, and that will follow the smart companies and the smart technologies. Our public subsidies, we could be doing a lot better in Missouri, but at the same time, when I say that, we're doing better than some others. But we have a tendency to shoot ourselves in the foot a lot, here within the state, and don't recognize that we have to stay the course for investment in the technology infrastructure. It's not, I was talking last spring during session to a key leader in the legislature, and he said to me, okay, if we fund MTC at this level, like, for how long do we have to do that? Meaning, when can we stop funding MTC? So, that's an education issue. We just have to help folks to understand this is a new economy, it's a new day. Legacy industries, big boxes, that's the old economic development paradigm. The new one is invest in small companies, grow your own. So we could be doing better there.
Question? To kind of piggyback off these two guys here, where do you see St. Louis in 5 to 10 years economically? Right now, we rank 43rd out of 50 large metropolitan areas. And as far as real estate vacancies, we rank 22nd out of 75 cities. With all this great innovation going on and people spending money in the urban innovation community, which is centrally located, but you still have the entire region. Where is St. Louis going to be in 5 to 10 years economically?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. So taking the real estate market, this is probably the toughest real estate market in my career that I've worked in. Back east, in the south, and here, it's historically been a soft market. That's a real challenge. It's one of my challenges because a phenomenon about St. Louis that isn't good is that everybody wants it free. Okay? Nobody wants to pay for it. The disparity in our market with Class A space downtown and Class A space in Clayton or out along 270 is quite striking. So one of the challenges I have is if we're supporting emerging technology companies and startup companies, they need to grow. I need to have facilities for them to grow into. But it's hard to build new construction in this environment because you can't support it economically at this point very easily, and the companies don't want to pay it. So we're hooked on free here, and I had a conversation with the founder of LouFest, and he was telling me about the same thing that's happened with music. People don't want to pay for music here. They want it free. So being addicted to free holds us back And if you go to any other major urban area, you pay for stuff. You pay for the real estate, you pay for the entertainment, you recognize that, that there's a value proposition there that you're participating in. So we have to grow our value proposition around real estate and become a first-tier, climb toward being a first-tier city. Economically, it is a challenge. I get a lot of folks asking me, how do we connect to the neighborhoods? And how can we do a better job in connecting what we're doing to underrepresented populations? And each of us need in this room to do what we can do, and Cortex is taking this very seriously right now. We just actually formed a new standing committee of the board of directors, which is an inclusion committee. And the role of that committee is to do nothing but figure out, how do we connect Cortex to the neighborhoods? How do we turn what we're doing inside out? Opportunity is one thing, but access to the opportunity is another thing. And I'm not just talking about access with transportation, I'm just talking about educational access, credentialed access. These are not easy issues. It takes a community to build a community, and we have to figure out as a community how to all do our part to bring St. Louis up. The economic weaknesses, I believe, can be addressed in a number of ways, but these are long-term solutions. Interestingly, this phenomenon I showed you about post-World War II, with the shift to the suburbs, the factories, and everybody going to the suburbs, and people living in the suburbs, hollowing out the cities. So we spent 50 years, the flip side of that is we spent 50 years of public policy coming up with all kinds of incentive programs to invest back in the city, and with marginal effect. And suddenly, a new generation of college grads want to live in the city, and now it's beginning to really impact the city in ways that we could never do with public subsidies. So these things are very, very tricky. I wish I had an easy answer for that. I do think that technology companies will be an important part of that solution in 10 years and 15 years. I think the demographics are conspiring positively to help grow the city again. Pretty much every first-tier city has a strong, every first-tier metropolitan area has a strong city at its center. We have a weak city at our center right now. We all have to recognize that that's not good for any of us. So it takes a lot of deep thinking and commitment for the long term. I do think that the things that you are doing in this room will be an important contribution to that, because creating the job opportunities is key, but the opportunity is not enough. We've got to create access for the other residents to those opportunities. So again, we can't do it all, but we have to be at the table to have the discussion, to find the solutions. I'm sorry that's an inadequate answer, but.
Probably time for one more. Hold on. Don't wait for me.
As the ecosystem matures and we start to have successful exits and companies become successful, like a Square would be an example, how do you see that impacting the ecosystem in the city in terms of like what would be, what would logically follow once we start to have successful companies? Or is there going to be a lot of building around Cortex? Will firms try to grow within Cortex itself? I mean, based on your experience with different innovation districts, how does that go forward?
So it's a very good question. What happens is that you begin to experience exponential growth. So the more serial entrepreneurs you have, the more companies that you start, the more people come out of those companies and start their own companies, and it really multiplies quickly, and I would expect that would happen here. Again, we're in the early stages of that, but I would see that trend accelerating in the next 5 years. And as that accelerates, that means there are more companies on the ground, and there's more interstitial space between the downtown and Cortex and Creve Coeur that's being filled in with companies. So I think that that's the phenomenon that we've seen in every major city where there's a technology hub, and I would expect that would happen here. And that's what folks like Cortex and all of the support organizations in the tech ecosystem are trying to do to support that phenomenon, because that's what you want to see happen. You want to see viral growth. You know, that's good for our ecosystem.
To learn more about MVF, visit mvfstl.org. MVF, connect, discover, grow.